I used to call myself a lettering artist, and that was not quite enough. Like, yes, I draw typography, but because I'm using food and objects, the world around me is full of inherent messages and power, and really I'm just trying to funnel those connections into some sort of a greater message. I want to move people. As I'm touching all of these items and arranging them to say things, they are speaking to me also. It's really just me trying to capture meaning. And so much of my work is fleeting anyway. Almost everything I do ends up in the garbage faster than other people's work. And it's because it all has a time frame and a date. Things die under the lights, they separate, they shrivel. And it's a question of how do we make this thing in the moment matter? I think so much of making art is about the process, and people say that all the time. And I never understood it until doing this kind of work. I think through the process of trying something and taking a risk, you ultimately learn a little bit about it that you wouldn't have otherwise. I find that usually my inclination in making items out of food and objects, the first inclination is always wrong. It's oh, this is how this would behave in theory. And then when I start putting my hands to it, I realize that's not how life works. Life is never so scripted. And so how do we make something that is elegant and timeless, and at the same time, surprising? I work really hard at trying to make these messages matter because I think our world is so full of inspiration. We're constantly scrolling and liking and imbuing or imbibing all sorts of imagery that we're not taking time to let it move us. And so really I want to create pause and reflection and motivation with the work that I do. Because I think, unlike using pen or paper, if you're using items, they're speaking to or against whatever you're choosing to say anyway. And so you're just layering meaning into everything that you're making. I think when you start putting truth into the work that you do, and the truth can be ugly, it can be refined, it can be profound, it can be all kinds of things. I think truth is, when it starts to make itself evident in your work, I think it penetrates layers deep. And it can touch someone who's either just kind of skimming past it or scrolling to someone who's taking time to really sit and look at it and let it move them to be affecting. Ultimately, my hope is that I make people feel some type of way with the things that I do. If you are channeling the point and purpose of a piece of work, you're going to let that power move through you so that it becomes what it needs to be. And if you try to hold that power, you're going to choke it out and it's going to leave you. And the thing will not be as effective in the end as what it could have been had you held it more loosely. I think also the important thing to understand about power in art is that once you are done channeling it, then you are done channeling it. You do not sustain it, you do not make 5 more seasons, you do not riff off of it in a way that is exploitive. You cut that off and know when to be done. Otherwise, again, the power will leave you. And so it's this idea of how do you let things flow through you? How do you be like water while also being focused like fire and making the most of something that you can? It's the ability to give up control over a thing that you think you have control of. Again, you don't control the power of something. You don't control the box you're put in, or the way that people perceive your box. You control how you behave, respond, and react to these challenges or this workflow set in front of you. And at the end of the day, whatever comes of it and whatever it becomes is really not up to you, because you're functioning as a mirror for the idea. You are simply presenting the idea like a mirror to other people, to a client, to an objective. And if the objective is good, sound, or profitable, that will reflect itself in the work that you've done. It's been very hard, and it highlighted for me the fact that even though I love my job and I love what I do and I'm very passionate about it, that sometimes this job kills me. Sometimes it siphons my energy faster than anything that I feel ambivalent towards. It gives me immense pleasure when it's working and immense pain when it's not. And so I've had to come to grips with the fact that I am not my work. My work is, again, an output. My artwork cannot come first. I have to come first. And through that healing process and that care, I will produce better work. There's always a lag time on what you what you see for yourself and what other people are willing to accept from you. And that lag time is so frustrating because it's the tension point of, I want to make work in this avenue for these industries, for these clients, and realizing that in some cases the people who finally do hire you have only hired you because you have proven that it is effective, it is beautiful, and it is profitable. And that is the worst part of being an artist. Needing people to come check out your box. It's funny because by the time someone shows up to look at your box, it's often old and moldy and out on the curb, and you're tired. The push forward is the most difficult, especially if you're in places where you've not been before, and especially if you've done the internal work so that you know how to dig, like, very deeply down into yourself. I think all the time about people would say, like, nobody can do what you do. And I look around and I see these different platforms and I go, but everybody's doing what I do. And other people are doing what other people do all the time. It's really not an issue of, can someone do what I do? Because yes, the amount of time, if someone puts the time into it, they can surely do what I do. But am I digging deeply enough into myself that the messages that come out of me, the concepts, are they true enough to me? Because that's the thing that nobody can do. My name is Danielle Evans. I'm a dimensional typographer, a creative mind, and a constant questioner.